This is King Noble Black Supremacy. And with this particular video, I want to talk about you no longer trying to make sense out of life and start making life out of your sixth sense. So don't make sense out of life, but now make life out of your sense. Your sense of who you really are. Your sixth sense. Your premonition, your intuition. Let life's meaning arise from the essence of who you are as you experience the totality of all that is in its becomingness. A lot of people like to look at their life and go back in their life and try to make sense out of things that happened to them when they were young, the neighborhood they grew up in, the parents that they had. They may have lost a parent. They may have went through some situations, poverty. They just want to make sense out of life. They may have made some decisions that led them into some very serious consequences or circumstances. They may have had some very serious challenges, and they want to make sense out of life. And it's logical to want to make sense out of life. But it's really the ego that wants to make sense out of life. It's the ego that wants everything to add up to an ultimate point. And once it adds up to that point, it means that now you have knowledge that you possess, that you somehow have arrived, you got it. You have understanding of everything. But see, that's your prison. Because life is not limited to that. Once you get to the point of where you feel like you understand and know things, to the point where you even feel as though you have wisdom, that's a prison. Because to some degree that's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's a closed mind to infinite possibility. Because just because circumstances may have manifested in your life in this manner doesn't say anything for anyone else, or doesn't make any definitive statements about life. A matter of fact, your experiences or your perception of those experiences is less than infinite zeros 0.1 of what life is. To make sense of life, you would have to realize and be honest that you don't even know what life is. You just know what experiences that you had, and you know what framework that you approach those experiences from. That's what you know. Because we talk about being born, and you say your parents gave you life, your mother, your father. But that's not the life they gave you. Because you were never born, you are an eternal entity. So you were never born. You've been here forever. No one ever gave you life in the truest sense. But they did give you life, and it wasn't your physical self. It was your framework, your perception, your worldview, your consciousness about things, your sense of knowing. your reference points, was given to you. And that's what you understood to be your life. And you use those reference points as anchors to navigate through something that is very infinite, very spontaneous, and almost random. But you had some anchors and points of references that was given to you, and that's what you call life. So when somebody gave you life, they gave you a perceptual framework that you, of course, picked and chose through, sifted through, and added a little bit of your own self-arising observations. But for the most part, television, music, your associates, your parents, the adults, the people in the neighborhood, they gave you life. And you accepted that life and accepted that to be what life is, not realizing that that was not life at all, that what you experienced was in life. But what life is so much more infinite and so much more vast that you've yet to even scratch the surface. And if you think you know something about life, that knowledge is your prison. And it also not only makes you a prisoner, but it also makes you a warden of whoever you subject to that prison of your beliefs and what you feel to be knowledge and what you feel to be truth. And life itself is just so much more infinite. But you want to make sense out of it. But it's constantly going. So it is inconclusive. Something that does not end is inconclusive. It has no conclusion. So it cannot make sense if it is infinitely and eternally occurring, because there is no point where it ends. So somewhere you're in the middle of a multi-dimensional space that has no end, but the part that you're standing, which is your perception, is your prison. They are your limits. They are your fear. They are your false sense of security. It is your ego. You think it secures you from what not to do, but it also limits you from what could be done beyond your perspective about what and how things are. What you call life was given to you. It was given to you, but it's not life. You have to give it back and go beyond the thing that was given to you that was called life. You have to go beyond that. And that's where your ego dies, because it's the sense of knowing. It's understanding. It's wisdom. It's truth. It's just what things are. It's just how it is. But I'm telling you, that's not just how it is. That's nothing. And when you realize that that's nothing, then you can move into the bigger picture of infinite possibility. Your trap is what makes sense to you. You have to stop trying to make sense out of life. That is your prison. Things occur. There are occurrences. And endless meanings can be applied to them. And life is constantly defining and redefining your experiences as you continue to navigate through this infinite reality. But when you no longer try to make sense, you are free. Because you're no longer trapped in what happened or what you perceived happened. Because your perception was the occurrence itself, which was given to you. Once you go beyond the life that was given to you, you can live in the infinite life that really belongs to you. The life that was there before the artificial paradigm was given to you, the temporal paradigm, the limited paradigm. You can go back to the life that you lived before it was given to you. All of these thoughts and ideas, they became your sense of the world, your sense of being. But they then originate or arise from the essence of who you really are. They distracted you from that. The essence of who you really are makes life out of your sense as a creator, as an author, as a creative being. You take all of it as it is happening and transform it into what is to be, that is in divine expression and divine manifestation of your consciousness, of your true divine creative self. You take it all and you turn it into that, no matter what it is. You don't make sense out of it. Soon as you think that you can make sense out of it, and that your perspective makes sense, and that you have the truth of it, and this is just what it is, something happens in your life to show that you have no control, and something happens outside of that box to show you how senseless it really is. Shows you that while you have made sense out of it, some part of it will remain senseless, that allows everything you made sense out of to slip through the cracks, to slip out, to dissolve. Because the senseless part is the eternal part of it. It is the open-ended part of it. And if life is open-ended, it cannot make sense in the way that you think. It cannot have the type of sense that you strive to achieve. You think you understand the rules, and then you see that there are exceptions to those rules, and exceptions to those exceptions to those rules. So what do you know? What sense do you have? The only opportunity for sense is the sense of your true self, and what you're here to create, do, be, and have, and what you're here to manifest. That will make sense of it all. That will make life for you. Because life will come to you, but at time it makes it through you. It will be transformed into what you can use moment to moment, in each and every now. Something that you can use to anchor yourself in an eternal ocean, only to keep you afloat as you move from island to island to island forever. No sense. That's limited. That's an opinion. That's your perception. That's what you think happened to you. That's what appeared to have happened to you. That's what it may have meant to you. But there are infinite meanings, infinite possible meanings, senseless. Stop trying to make sense out of life and make life out of your sense of who you really are, and you will go beyond the traps. Go beyond the constructs that was put in your face, that where they told you this is what it is, this is what this means, and this is how it is. But that's just not the truth, because it's constantly changing, constantly inventing itself, constantly creating itself. The life that you think is life is a program. It's a rigged perception. And you have to open your consciousness to escape the prison that has become your consciousness itself by what has been given to you. To return back to your true innocence, to your original self. Therein lies the infinite possibility of what can happen for you. Therein lies the inescapable potential for your definite success in your undertakings in your life. You have no excuse, because just like it doesn't make sense of the things that you perceive that were negative, it doesn't have to make sense either for the things that will occur that will be extremely positive. If it has to make sense, you're trapped in hell. And if it don't make sense, heaven awaits you at any moment. Any random event can be the most epiphanous moment that you've ever had, that can make sense of it all. And even that sense dissolves into senselessness as you continue to perpetuate yourself through this malleable energy that we call our existence on this particular plane. It is shapeless and formless, but we move through form. And some of the forms we move through form our prison to return to the formlessness of our consciousness at essence. Because in the formlessness is our creative power. And any form anchors us as we continue to move through our eternal selfhood. As we continue to move through infinite energy. Every moment is just but an anchor, just but a catalyst for the next. It kind of makes sense. But then it don't if you factor in the infinite possibility, the infinite probability. Then it might make sense, but then it might not. It may be, and it may not. You stay in a state of open consciousness and open-mindedness, and then you are free. And then there is no pain and there's no suffering, because those who search for it to make sense suffer. They experience pain because their ego is attacked every time it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't seem right. It never was right, but somehow it never was wrong either. It just is. And when you can get into the isness of it, then that same isness will be the catalyst for what is to be for you in the most profound and the most magnificent and the most amazing way. But you must remain open. You must not become a prisoner of a life that was given to you, of a perceptual framework that was given to you. What you think is life is simply just an opinion. The first opinion was given to you, and the second opinion will come from your enlightened selfhood, as it is manifesting as King Noble Black Supremacy. So I only ask that stop trying to make sense out of it, and if you make sense out of it, just know that that's only a temporary anchor, that you could be wrong. Stay open, because you can experience senseless joy, senseless happiness, senseless ecstasy, senseless power, senseless wealth, senseless abundance, senseless health. But every negative thing that you have perceived can continue to make sense to you. And you use that sense to secure yourself. You use that sense to maintain your fear and to spread your fear to others, and to spread your paranoias, and to spread your phobias, and to spread your sense of it all, as you ignore the senselessness of it all, which is where your freedom, where your peace, and where your eternal self really lies at. Infinity is senseless. Senseless. But this moment, if you can awaken, you can create what is to be. You can derive the sense that is relative to what you project to create and to manifest, that would be the manifestation of your utopia, of your divine reality. If you can live in that, but if you have to go back to it making sense, every prisoner can agree with you. A lot of times you think because people agree with you that you're telling the truth. No, they're just fellow inmates. They just cellies. Just because people agree with you don't mean you got the truth. Just because they agree with you just means you have social proof, but you don't have the truth. That's safe. That's why we have religions. People trying to make sense out of shit. And these religions get exposed. And their contradictions get presented before them because it still don't make sense. After you read their holy books and all that, it's just some about it that it just still doesn't make sense. Like, who said it all had to make sense? And whoever told you that was your first slave master. They was your first master. When they told you that this shit had to make sense, that this shit makes some type of sense, and then they begin to try to tell you the sense that it makes. And while you thought you had a sense of what life was, you just kind of only had a sense of them and where they were at about it and what they could see. But if you could go beyond their sense of it all, then you return back to the senselessness of it all, and you see that his sense and her sense and his sense and her sense and their sense, and if you try to put it all together, it's senseless, because all of their senses is different, because they all sense something else from where they're at. So it still remains senseless in the end, and you're still on this journey on your own. But as you do what you're supposed to do, what you're here to do, and manifest your life purpose without fear, lack, doubt, limitation, then somehow you no longer try to make sense out of life. And now you begin to make life out of your sense. Because your sense of who you are is what it will always be about, being here. But if you do not have that sense, none of it will ever mean anything, and it will only further confuse you and further distract you from the power that you possess. That life is like a frog. It's like the lily that the frog lands on. It just uses that to anchor itself to get to where it's going. It doesn't spend too much time thinking about each and every leaf. It knows where it's going because it has a sense of itself and how high it can jump. And when you know how high you can jump and how high you can go and how unlimited that you are, you'll no longer look for things to make sense outside of yourself, and you'll just go through life and not to life. Some of us, we came to life, and that's why we have all these problems. But many of us are just coming through life. The God in us is just coming through life, and some of us is trapped as being mortals because we just came to life and we just can't seem to get past it. We can't seem to get over it. Don't come to life, go through life. But on the other side of the life that you went through, awaken to the divine being that you really are. And the best that life can be is symbolic of your infinite power to create, and that you use this elemental world to the highest of your capacity to illustrate and orchestrate the you that you are as much as possible. But it will all fall short of the glory of God, because it is material, it is linear, it is dual. And you are an infinite being. So you will go through it. Because infinity will continue to be on the other side of it. No matter how stuck you think you are here or there in this or that situation, infinity still remains on the other side. That is the true equation. Infinity has no answer, has no question. So it can't make sense. And it doesn't have to. Just keep sensing you and sensing you and sensing you as you move through it. It's King Noble Black Supremacy. Signing out.